What is up, everybody? I'm going to show you a trade here. This was requested by some traders who I was talking to them about the actual trade, but they couldn't actually see my screen. So this is sort of like a request video in a sense, but I'm going to share it with you guys on YouTube as well. So to give you guys some context, this trade was taken April 23rd. This is in the afternoon around 120 Chicago, um, or 1300 if you don't use AM PM time. But anyways, a little context. So the market was ripping up substantially the previous day. Um, there was President Biden announced something about a tax hike on the rich, or I don't know. But it sent the market into a frenzy, and there's a big sell off. Well, this next day, the market is totally from the open just trending up, and it's a Friday, so don't don't fight it, right? So one thing to do is just don't fade this thing. When you have a strong trend like this, typically you're not going to have some sort of V top. What you need is the market to start ranging out for a while. And typically you're going to have the pullback most likely sometime in the afternoon, later afternoon, I should say. Um, so that's what we have going on here. We have the market ranging out, and this is a 1 minute chart, and it's going sideways. So I like to play the breaks of ranges. So what I'm looking at this is initially I'm going to take a short. I'm going to take a 2 tick loss on it, and then I'm going to flip the position into a long. Now, my thinking on this for the short is purely order flow based, and I'm going to walk you guys through that, and then I'm going to walk you through why I decide to go long. Um, what I'm looking for, what I'm actually looking for is a test of first standard deviation, which is this light blue line that's probably virtually invisible to all of you. Um, if the price can drop down here, I'm looking for a long. But if there's a high amount of order flow and the selling's really stepping in because it just wasn't there at all for the entire session up until this point, if that selling is really there, I'm going to try to ride it to first standard deviation on the short side and then cut the trade completely unless the velocity in the order flow maintains at a very high rate. Then I'll hold it longer. But if not, I'm going to flip the position, sell, and then get back in. Well, it doesn't go all the way there, and I end up getting long somewhere around here. So let's look at the first trade, which is the short. So what we're doing is we're in this range right here, and we're sort of in the middle of it at this point. The order flow is somewhat high. It's relatively high, um, which is good. I need high order flow to warrant some sort of breakout. And we're also seeing some really decent fucking selling at this point. So seeing this massive cluster of large selling, you can see there's a 45, 98, there's another 98. So that's probably the same trader who's selling these 98s, um, because that's kind of a weird number. It's not, a multiple of 5 or 0. So that's telling me there's a larger seller here. And there's just a lot of cluster selling coming in of decent size. And we're having high flow of tape too. So that's confirming to me that this might break out. You do have these larger bids kind of buffering the move down. You have a block buy, that really doesn't mean too much to me, unless there's a shitload more buying piling in. Um, you're starting to get a little bit of buying. There we go. And then we're being rebutted with selling. The buying is slightly larger than the selling at this point, and then we get another cluster of selling. So I want to see these sellers come in. So what I'm doing here is I'm using this modified Fibonacci tool, which is probably fucking invisible to you guys. all this does is measure the edges of a range and the middle point and the quarter zones, which basically I like to chop up a range into quarters. So I want to see where the midpoint is from the top to the bottom, and then I want to see where the quarter of that range would be. And all it is, again, is a modified Fibonacci tool. It's not a Fibonacci levels. I don't necessarily make decisions off of it. It just allows me to see what the price action is looking like within a range. So I end up putting it on the chart here. I go for the short at this point because we're approaching the lower half of this range. So I'm somewhat getting into the trade earlier. Usually I'll try to hit right near the edge for the breakout. Trying to get into a breakout trade coming out of a range somewhat early can be difficult at times. It's usually better to do it right as it's breaking, but nevertheless, I do like to attempt to get in a bit early. So we're having still decent rates of pace of tape here, but it's just not going at this point. And now we're getting a lot of buying and the market's starting to move up pretty quickly on me. So I tried to get it for a one tick loss, couldn't get it. Um, so I decided to go for the two tick loss on two lots. So that's 50 bucks, or just it's a trading expense. Now I just put it to three lots. So one technique I like to use is, and I learned this through S&B Capital, is most trades aren't going to work on the first try. Especially if you do this sort of style of trading where you scalp your way into trades and keep cutting it until it works. Because I don't like to take large amounts of risk. What I like to do and what I learned through them is one of their traders will scale up size on each attempt. And it's a method I've been using recently and I really like it. So instead of trying to trade full size with a full four lots, I'll trade with two lots. If the trade doesn't work, I'll trade with three lots. If the trade doesn't work, I'll do four lots. Usually I have a max of 3 to 4 tries on a trade. Um, so so that's just some little management thing I've been using and I really like it. So I'm up to three lots now. And I took a two tick loss. Now people do ask me about stops, which I'll show you here in a minute. See, we're just not having good order flow. So there's still a shitload of buying in here. And that's the thing. I'm looking at the tape at this point, and there's just a lot of buying. It's not enough selling for me to be confident in a breakout anymore on the short end because there's just tremendous amount of buying still coming in. And we're near the low of this range. If it was gonna be like, I would be more confident in selling it if I just saw a lot more red, if you would. But larger orders. I mean, we're seeing 94 lot buys, 40 lot, 41 lot, 89. You know, so we're getting a lot more just larger buy orders at this point. Yes, we have a 95 lot sell, but it's flanked by two mid-sized buys. And also these bids are somewhat stout, and they keep reloading. So the trade it's not going anywhere, and we just still have a shitload of buying. The pace of tape isn't really that high anymore. So I need an increase of pace of tape, and I also want to see a lot more selling to want to trade the breakout. I'm not going to re-enter for another try short at all, but if I was, I would need to see something different. A lot of the same is happening right here, and that doesn't warrant another try. If I'm going to try to hit this thing again, I need to see the price move away. I need to see something radically shift instead of just seeing a lot of the same shit in the same area. Otherwise, I'm going to start over hitting or over trading. So now we're starting to breach this pivot low. So we're breaching this range. Um, and I'll just let it play real time so you can see the order flow. There's selling here, which is good, but at this point, it's just not that manic, if you will. The pace just isn't high enough. And there's just too much buying in this little section right here. So typically, what can happen in ranges is the price, if it's the price can test the previous major pivot of a range and start to breach that range a bit. And if it's just not doing it on high enough volume, typically it'll reverse and then it'll try to test the other side of the range. And that's where you can get a nice breakout. So the top of this range has been somewhat tested twice, not quite twice, but it's definitely tested up here roughly 2 times. And this is kind of a prime example. The range tested higher up here than it did over here, so we pulled down, tested a bit higher, and now we're going to the other side. So that's exactly what I'm talking about. The same thing could be happening on the bottom end of it. So I'm looking at it from that perspective. Um, Also, the previous day's high is right around here, and the previous day's high is going to start to act magnetic. And I know that that will, a previous day's high or low can act as support and resistance. So I know that if this market does sell off, it's probably going to hit the previous day's high, and then bounce it. And depending on what the order flow and everything looks like on that bounce will determine if I go long or short. So essentially, that's kind of what I'm waiting to see. What does the order flow look like? So I'm both short and long biased um, on the deal, but it really is heavy on order flow. But this is going into a range that, or this is going into an area that I'm interested in. The flow isn't that high. We still have decent amount of selling, but the flow of tape isn't that high. You got 2 block sells that just hit right there. But the market's really not moving down. It keeps popping up right here. You do have this larger offer there. Now you're starting to get a fuckload more buying coming in. Okay, but I don't want to go long against these 2 large offers that are here. It's almost like somebody's trying to force the market down, but it's not working. So you got this 427 offer sitting here, but there's no real good selling hitting the bids here. So what that tells me is the sellers just aren't that aggressive. If these offers are coming in and it's being followed up by just a lot of volume on the sell side, that would be more confident inspiring for a move down and for me to want to get in. But that's really not happening. And I think we're hitting the previous day's high right here. I'm not exactly sure where it is. I have it marked on the auction Vista, but we can't see it because when I stream these sessions, I'm recording 2 monitors, this one back here, and then this is on a different screen. And it's important for me when I'm reviewing trades to see this shit. So I think from this point forward, you guys will probably never see auction Vista again. Rest in peace. So there's no selling. Look at, there's no order flow. The flow is so low here. And then somebody takes the liquidity, a big 200 lot buy. Now we're getting higher rates of flow. When we popped into that, we're getting high rates of flow. And we got another block coming in. So we're having good, really right there. I love that huge cluster that comes in. So what happens is this 519 just gets absolutely obliterated by all these mid sizes that are broken up, and it's hitting it. Same thing with the liquidity here. On the other large offer that was down here, that got taken as well. So buyers are coming in relatively quickly. The flow's picking up, so the flow is starting to pick up as we go upward. And when we reach down here, it stopped, and it literally stops to the previous day's high to the fucking tick. And I was wanting to see what happened there. And I'm either long or short. in this little area. But judging by how much buying there is, I'm definitely really long biased at this time. You can see I'm getting into the trade. And this is a good setup because we're sort of bottom ticking this range, and there could be a high probability that this thing just keeps going. We're also very close to all-time highs, so I'm pretty confident we're going to visit that, especially on a Friday. Typically, especially lately, Fridays just go. They just trend and go, and they just keep going, and it's just very pointless to fade Friday strength unless there's something substantial there. So there's a lot of context going on when it comes to me making a decision on this. So there's just a lot that I'm not explaining to you guys, that I can't think of right now, that why I'm taking this. And also I'm just really familiar with these sort of trades too. So you have to understand I have this feel for it. So what I'm gonna do is the flow is stopping here, which really isn't that good. I know that this thing could just continue to rally up very sharply and not come back. This sort of trade is where you get a V bottom and it doesn't come back. And if you try not if you're not getting into it, you might end up chasing it and then it reverses on you. So I ended up going for an extra tick up there. Um, Good selling. This trade only goes against me 2 ticks. It goes in my favor, 43 ticks. So it's a really solid trade. Of course, I'm going to start scaling it out as it moves up. Now, I don't let my emergency stop. I constantly get asked questions about emergency stops. Look, we got more good buying, which is confident inspiring. I'll talk about stops here in a minute. More buying, which is good. So let me start fast forwarding the trade. So I'm just kind of doing, so we're going up and now we're starting to get some selling. Um, Starting to get selling. But anyways, this isn't a target up here. It is, but it's not what I'm trying to get for the trade. I have a strategy manager on. And for bigger runs, I'm typically trying to lock in at least 4 points on the first contract. Even though it says 3, what I would do is cancel this and then I would put 1 right there. But that comes in automatically to let me know where 4 points is. So that way I don't have to fucking count each price until I figure out where 4 points is. As far as stops go, I do have a video on it. I think it's why managing trades by hand makes a difference. I don't know if that's the official title. I've talked about stops. Okay, I still get asked questions on it. I always run a 6-tick emergency stop, but I don't ever want to let it get hit. I took quite a few trades this day. Maybe I forget how many trades I took, upward near of 20 or something like that. Um, I only got stopped out once, just to give you an idea of what my risk control looks like on the downside. Um, it's an emergency stop, and I also know statistically I can work within 6 ticks. Any tighter than that, it's too tight. Statistically, 6 ticks is where I can work because I do need to let the trades breathe a bit at times where it goes against me 2 ticks, such as this example. Um, and that's how I do it. So I'm never letting the trade run into it. I don't want to. For the most part, unless something happens. Sometimes you'll just have some asshole drop a shitload of large sell orders and it just shoves right into it. It happens. But also, if the internet goes down or whatever, that emergency stop is there. And as far as targets go, I'm going to manage shit based off of order flow and structure on the profile and just a lot of other context. So now we're getting a lot of more buying. And this trade works out beautifully. So it starts to get hung up right in this area. You can see there's a lot of big blocks coming in, and it's starting to halt the market, which is near the midpoint of this range. So what I'm going to do is end up taking one lot off right here because I do want to get paid on the trade. Um, Give me a second. There we go. I just took the one lot off. So it's starting to get halted and it's really going sideways at this point. Sellers are definitely showing their hand right here. And I'm taking that off and going to readjust it to 2 lots since now I'm only long 2 lots. I should be readjusting that stop, but I don't think I do. So yeah, anyways, I want to get paid on it. I'm okay with the break even on the last 2 lots. I'm getting a lot better at holding longer term trades, which is something I've always wanted to get good at, and it's taken a lot of effort and tries to be able to do what you're about to see. But for me, I need to get paid on shit. Okay. Typically, a lot of you are going to have issues where you panic out of trades, and that's okay. I think it's a lot easier if you're trading multiple lots instead of a one lot because you can just go ahead and panic out of at least one lot and then let the others ride. So I want to lock in something on the trade. If it doesn't work, I break even on the last 2. No big deal. I can always re-enter. And that's also why I like to scalp into trades because instead of getting married to shit, I'm perfectly okay with cutting and re-entering. Which is something I prefer, and it's sort of just my style that I've worked on for a very long time. So let's fast forward this shit, because I know the reward potential on this thing could be huge, right? That's why I'm okay with just letting these last 2 contracts break even, right? Theoretically it was a solid scalp. Like I could have made a decent profit just trading 3 lots and getting out all at the same spot, but Um, hold on, I'm adjusting shit. Uh-oh. Give me a second. There we go. So it's really not going anywhere. Anyways, so what happened was the trade started to pull down closer to me. I want to actually show you guys the order flow on that because this is probably where a lot of people would panic. Here we go. So we're getting a lot heavier selling at this point. And you can see it's creeping closer and closer to me. I have my mouse covering the break even, which is good. You don't want to have your fucking mouse on a different screen. And then we immediately start to, this large bid is here and it's starting to reload and we're starting to get good buying, which is good. So what I want is we had tested up here. You can barely see it and we pivoted. If we can test that pivot high right in this little zone where when I first got into the trade and it ran and then it rotated, if we can start testing that area again, and I'm not really seeing hardcore selling, that gives me confidence. We definitely have more of a move up. How much further? I don't know. I never know. All I can do is just try to manage it as best as I can and just pay attention to order flow and look for some radical shifts. Now, you can't hyper focus too much on order flow because it will shake you the fuck out. It just takes a lot of experience to not get shaken out by order flow. If you already have a trade working this much in your favor, most people would have probably panicked when it came back down like that. But over time, I've done a lot more and more of these longer holds, bigger trades. Um, I'm starting to become pretty much desensitized to uh, panicking out of these things because in the end they always seem to run. When I have these really when I'm very confident and have these bigger picture ideas, they tend to always run. So right here I'm marking all-time highs at 83.50. I'm just sort of looking at other shit. We have good buying here. So I'm going to start fast forwarding again. We still have really solid fucking buying. We are officially double topping that previous pivot after I got into the trade initially. And look at see all that buying, just that cluster of buying. So I rewound it a bit. I'm gonna play it so you can see what it looks like real time. That's good. So we're about to touch the official midpoint of this range, which is a few more ticks above us. I want to see that buying being sustained. We are officially on the midpoint of this range. So this midpoint can deflect the market back down. So midpoints of ranges can at times shift into support and resistance. So I'm well aware of that. But the buying is looking so solid on the fucking deal. So I'm making that bigger so you can see it. Anyways, so we blew through this area on good buying. So what I'm pretty sure it's going to test higher near 78. I'm pretty confident in it at this point. And again, this is just like understanding this setup and just have trading a lot of these for a very long time. Like I just understand it. And this is auction market theory. You have to understand that this is auction market theory. If they're not selling down here trying to explore new value areas, it's going to fucking reverse and go test the other side. And this shit happens a lot. So we're struggling right here. That's fine. I'm okay with that. So we're starting to come up a bit higher, and I am fast forwarding it. So we're still chopping this midpoint. So even though it's not getting through here, the chopping of this midpoint of this range is a good sign that it's going to transition to the other side. You have to understand this midpoint is fair market value of this range. So it's acting like a point of control. It's acting like a VPOC. And if you look at it, there's also a bell curve right here. So this is the highest set of nodes. So it's going to get stuck here because, again, this is fair market value. Still have a lot more buying going on in the tape. It's starting to get a little more intermixed, but for the most part, it's slightly more buying on the tape. Now we have a really solid buying. Now we're starting to finally blow out of this area. Right? So, and then we're banging up. So I'm trying to hold to all-time highs. That's my target. I know it can get through all-time highs, and it probably will. But for me, I'm going to be 100% satisfied taking it off right at all-time highs. That was my intentions. And if you have targets, you take the trade off at the target. You don't try to hold longer. Yeah, sure, it could go further, but it might not. You always take your trades off at the targets that are pre-designated. Otherwise, if you don't, you could just let the whole deal come back in on top of you. So, what's happening? Okay, here we go. So, bang, we bang through this. We volume spike through this area on really good buying. So, there's an increase of volume there. Still holding the two lots here. You're starting to get a tremendous more amount of selling, and these offers are somewhat stout. So I do want to take one off right here and lock in the second, lock in a little bit more profit. And this is how I like to trade. I like to progressively scale each contract out. So I take one off right there. Now I have two contracts locked in because I wouldn't, at this point, I don't want it to come back to my entry. Like, look how far my entry is at this point, right? So here I get the lock in. What am I at? 772 or some shit. Give me just a second. And it's really starting to struggle up here. I'm wondering if, yeah, see, I'm way the fuck down there. I wouldn't want the trade to come back to me at this point with two lots. So I'm going to lock in the other one because it's ran so much further that all in all, it's still a good trade. I'm still aiming at 83.50. And I'm thinking maybe what happened down here might start to happen up here. I doubt it, just because we're so close to all-time highs. We still have a good amount of time left. It's 1:55. We still have like an hour and 5 minutes at this point. Um, fucking looking at a P&L there to just kind of see where I'm at. Don't look at the P&L. Mitch, don't ever do that. Um, anyways, so we're starting to get in a fuckload of selling up here. Starting to get a shitload of selling up here. So that there's a fuckload of big block selling. So this right here is a sediment shift, and this is telling me, okay, I mean, look at these offers. This is telling me that sellers are definitely in control of this area, and I have not seen this kind of selling in the session at this point. We're getting a tremendous amount of buying in. So what's happening now is the top of this range might start to act like support. So I'm sort of banking on that. I'm okay with the last contract turning into a break even. So you guys know. Uh, I probably take it off for a tick of profit, but I'm okay with it running back into me because this trade still has a fuckload of potential. There's my ultimate target is up there. Still getting some decent buying. A lot of selling right there. It's just getting bombarded with massive amounts of large selling. But the market isn't like capitulating in. Okay, so that's a good sign. But sellers are definitely in control of this point. We're breaching this area, the top of the range, which is okay. The selling is not being sustained. Notice how the order flow is stopping, and then all of a sudden you have a cluster of buying. So look at how the order flow is pretty much like nothing's happening. You can read everything on the retail tape, and then you get a cluster of buying. So that lack of speed on the tape is telling me that this could reverse back up. Typically, when you have reversals, the tape just starts to die out. If you're going to have a sustained continuation of a move, the tape's usually going to stay high as far as the pace goes. So actual pace of tape is just as important, if not more important, than the actual orders coming through on the tape. Don't get me wrong. I think actually reading the tape is very valuable, and it's definitely the backbone of my trading. So now we're getting tremendous amounts of buying in here. So buyers are officially taking over at this point. We had sellers taking over up here. Now we have buyers taking over here. So that's a good sign. So I'm going to start fast forwarding the whole fucking deal. Now we're starting to get blocks selling down here again. So that's not good. We still have a good amount of buying going on. It's not like the buyers have given up. And market sinks in, right? So we still have a lot of these damn block sales coming in. That's fine. So what could potentially happen is we could pivot this midpoint of this range. And that's what I'm thinking might happen. But if we start to get to the lower half of the midpoint of this range, then to me that just tells me that this isn't going to go any higher. So I'm just sort of holding out in this area. So let's see I believe it actually rotates right here. So you're getting high flow on the way down, which is a sign of a further push down. But again, since we're hitting the midpoint of this range, this is fair market value, so you're going to have a lot of buyers start to buffer the move. And again, this is a prime example of a midpoint or a point of control acting as a support and resistance. Still have decent buying. I'm going to start fast forwarding it. And you're getting a lot of selling, but they're just not able to push it. But we're not getting that block selling anymore. Now you're getting a fuckload more cluster buying. Oh, cluster selling here. Cluster selling. And I'm really not paying too close attention to the tape. I'm just going to let the trade ride because, again, you can, if you're in a trade that's riding, you can get sucked into order flow and it can scare the fuck out of you. So what you need to do is have levels that I don't want it to go further than this area, because if it does, then this is probably not going to work. So I have multiple areas where I don't want it to go past, and it's literally near the final point where I wouldn't want it to go any further. So the market's starting to go back up, and we're not. There's a bigger sell, but it's flanked by a fuckload more buying at this point. Starting to get selling again, and then we get more buying, and it's pretty fucking intermixed, right? So I'm gonna keep fast forwarding it. I wouldn't want to get in the trade up here, based off of the type of selling I see in the order flow, like just the pace. Like if I didn't get in that entry where I did, just to me would be a trickier spot to want to even attempt the trade, just because of the amount of large sells that are coming in up here. Look at that big ass cluster of buying right there. That's a really solid sign. So I rewound it a bit. Look at the tape. Look at the tape. Look at the tape. That is really good sign. That is a really good sign. Just the sheer amount of larger mid-sized buys that came in back to back to back. That is a very good sign. So, and then they're still hitting it. And that tells me there's definitely going to be a continuation on the buy-in. So even though we're seeing selling here, um, the sellers aren't really moving the market down at this point. We're seeing a lot of selling, but they're not moving the market down, so that tells me there's absorption and reloading on the bids. I keep fast forwarding it. A bit more buying. Again, this thing is just. I'm going to keep fast forwarding it, and it should blow up right here. It should start to run. At some point, there should be an area where it starts to just run a bit more. See, it's just steadily grinding up, and that's how this entire session's been as well. It's just been this complete grind up. Keep fast forwarding the deal. I want to see if there's an explosive move up. Yeah, right about here, it looks like it starts to go. Look at how so now the pace of tape is increasing substantially. That's really good. See how it's just much faster at this point. So that's really good. I like seeing that as we're hitting highs for the session. And then it keeps going and almost there. Just fast forwarding it. I mean, it's just, it doesn't like moonshot it. Do I get out right about here? No, I'm still in it. I think 8250 is all-time high. Yeah. So I'm explaining something to somebody at this point. And you're going to see me take the last contract off, which should be right around here. I want the trade to, if it's going to hit all-time high with good velocity, I'm thinking it could potentially run a bit further. I'll hold it, but otherwise, all-time high is my target. So I should be getting out here in just a moment. It's almost 230, which there should be an increase in volume. See, this thing is just fucking struggling. At this point, the volume's completely dead. I don't like that because the entire market could just fall in. And again, I should be getting out here any moment. Let's see. Let me fast forward it to the exit because this is just fucking like pulling teeth at this point. See, it's shooting up a little bit more. And right there's all-time highs. I'm okay with it. I take it off. And that's that. So hopefully you guys enjoyed that video. That trade, what did it make? The trade paid out 900. What did it pay? $900, $912.50 on it. So that's really good. Sorry guys, I'm really tired here. I'm rubbing my eyes. And I lost $50 on that one attempt, but those were the only two trades I took in the afternoon. I took another trade at 9:40 on 4 lots in the morning. That ended up paying out $1,212.50, which that was also a great trade. But what was the risk on it? That one only went against me 2 ticks, and that was 31 ticks in the money. Whereas this trade, I think, was 43 ticks. So just having and also I took a lot more size off near. I didn't scale out as aggressively in that one trade that paid out 1,200. It was a good day overall. Again, I only got stopped out once, and my running P&L, I believe, was positive for the whole session. No, there was a point where I was down 150 max before I turned it around. So it was a good day. I had a fucking option trade pay out $420 too. It was just a day trade on an options chain with SPX, which was good. This is not going to be an options channel, but I really like options, which was also a New Year's resolution. And I'm really loving them because it really complements trading the ES. Hopefully you guys enjoyed that. This was requested by some people, and hopefully those of you who requested it got a lot out of it as far as what does the order flow look like and what am I trying to, decipher by looking at it. That this specific trade was pretty easy. It was pretty brainless, but in the end, you really don't know if they're going to really run this far or not. There's just a fuckload of context that did go into this that also wasn't explained, and just having the experience with it. But that's just sort of an example of nailing a pullback pretty perfectly, if you ask me, and letting it continue. Anyways, you guys have a good one.